All right, folks, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here today. I appreciate you coming by. Now, this is a one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among other things. And what we're going to do is take a look at RLC. And we're going to see kind of what we can do to help you find a good entry point, best practice, and just understand what's going on overall in the market by looking at Bitcoin and Ethereum first. Now, I'm not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. Always do your own research. And just know I've been trading for years, right? Over 10 years, and I can tell you that in my experience, I've learned a lot, and I've learned a lot about what not to do. And my goal here is to help you understand, again, best practice so you can make a better, more well-informed decision, teach you to trade for a lifetime instead of just on a daily basis, right? That being said, that's kind of what we're looking at there. Feel free to reference my Patreon account down below if you'd like to show your support if you find benefit here. Also, furthermore, there's $25 in Bitcoin from Voyager. Reference that as well, in addition to my Telegram and Discord channels. So without further ado, let's go and check it out. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at RLC. Now, at this point, we're going to just go ahead and quickly peek into Bitcoin and Ethereum first. If you're new to the channel, I always like to look at those so we get a baseline kind of what's going on in the market. That way when you jump into an altcoin, you understand more specifically the big picture, and it really helps you make an informed decision. Okay, so we'll look at that first. And then we'll move on, of course, to the product at hand. So we'll look at RLC here in a moment. But this is by the way, this is the Binance desktop trading application. I use TradingView within. And you can just enable that in the top right hand corner if you'd like to follow along and add your indicators. I use see here the 50-day and the 200-day moving average. Those are the simple moving averages, as well as the VWAP and EMA. I'll get into that later, but simply put, those are the indicators that you might see here. These two are enabled with the 200 and 50-day moving average. So to preface here with the moving averages on Bitcoin, this is the 4-hour chart. And I prefer to use the 4-hour chart because it seems to carry the most weight and to be the most beneficial for me when using these indicators. And as you can see, the 50-day moving average was working as a nice support level recently, but is now a resistance. Big surprise, Bitcoin. We also see a head and shoulders pattern here forming, which implies the price could come down and come down a little further perhaps, and then likely come back up, or could very well correct itself and have like a short arm, head and shoulders, where it's got a really short arm on the other side. Either way you look at it, that is essentially the general synopsis here for Bitcoin. We have a major support level at 30,000. Current resistance is 42,000. So we're going to stay on this channel, I feel, for a little while longer. I don't think we're going to see a major breakout anytime soon, but if we do, be ready for other altcoins to follow suit, right? But again, we get a little bit more consolidation, perhaps closer to the 38 to 42,000 range from Bitcoin. Then we'll see some altcoins taking off. They did try recently, but of course, this this sell-off in the last 24 hours from 40 to 35 leaves everybody just kind of unsure of what to do. And it's unfortunate and it's tragic that Bitcoin has such control over the market in that sense. I do hope someday, perhaps Ethereum or something else, Cardano can take over and stop being so reliant on Bitcoin, right? It would be so nice to have that. Either way, needless to say, that is the case here. The 200-day moving average, also bear in mind, is a very impactful moving average. We're not going to see that being touched for quite some time. It's hovering around 49,000. Ethereum is a very similar scenario. As you can see, the similar channels here, right? Because it's almost mirroring Bitcoin recently because of the fact that that all the sell-offs, even though Ethereum typically does very well when Bitcoin sells off, there's a point where that has to slow down and stop when we just keep getting hit harder and harder every other day, right? So with that being said, we can see all this here. We got the China candle and the Elon candles up here to trade the price down. And now we have a support level at roughly 1900 and the resistance is 2900. So we got this $1,000 range that's kind of jumping around. But what's nice is the 50-day moving average is working as a support level now. It was almost broken. And it looks like with that slight variance there, it is back on track and will likely close above. So that's the hope there. So let's continue to see what happens with Ethereum, but it does seem like Ethereum is bouncing back a little better than it did before. And I like that. All right, moving on to RLC. Now I like to start with a one-day chart just to get perspective on like what happened and why we're here. Obviously we know why we're here for the most part with Bitcoin selling off. However, it's good to identify how these two correlate, right? So if we look at this here, see here 510. Let's actually quickly note here. First of all, 512 is the Elon candle, right? And then we also have China candle at about 518, and somewhere in between there is there's a few other things that have impacted, of course, but those are the two most important ones, you could say. So look at the 12th. That's the 12th right here. So this is interesting. If you look at the 12th right here, the Elon candle, even though we had pretty good strong sell-off, the day recovered green, and the following day it ramped back up. So we had a pretty strong increase the day after the Elon candle. And of course, the market continued to sell off with a state of indecision. So over the next few days we saw that, and then of course this is the China candle here. Drove the price down to its most recent low of about $3.10, and it ramped up and consolidated again because Bitcoin has just been kind of doing its thing here. So with this state of indecision with Bitcoin, that is causing a state of indecision with RLC. But in my opinion, based on the overall price action, it should be much higher. And here's what was great about this. The actual moving average, the 50-day moving average, is holding as a support with the 200 trailing behind. So this 50-day moving average has been tested 4 times and it's held every single time. So do I feel like the price is going to come any lower than $4.64? I do not. But obviously we want to see what happens with Bitcoin. If it comes back down to 30,000, then we will see this support level tested again, and it might even break at that point if Bitcoin can't get its stuff together, right? But if Bitcoin's head and shoulders pattern continues and we see a correction and then a price ramp back up to 42,000, then we'll be in really good shape here with RLC. Moving forward, we have a diminished amount of volume, which makes sense with all of the selling off. The bears are still in control. The MACD tells us it is Bear City. So it's Chicago Bears here, if you will. And also in the middle, we see RSI's fair to Midland. So really not much to note here on the one-day chart, minus the fact that, big picture, it makes sense as to why the price retraced, because the price came up way too fast, way too quick, and then really bad timing, Elon candle and then China candle. So there's really been no good opportunities for our RLC to recover, but it should have a good opportunity soon if we can see a state of consolidation from 38,000 to 42,000 with Bitcoin. I really think we're going to be just fine if we see that. All right, so moving on to the 4-hour chart now. And this is where it's getting interesting here. So if we look at the moving averages, first of all, the 50-day is the yellow one here. That is holding as a strong resistance level. We had a slight variance there, tried to break out, but didn't. And then it came back down and it's still pushing the price down. The 200-day moving average was kind of working as a support, but also not really, as a large variance. And we currently lost both supports. So at this point, what we're looking at here is a little bit of an uphill battle, right? So when we see the price action at $5.69, that's roughly where the moving averages should be, and the price is under that, that is cause for a slight concern because there's 2 moving averages the price needs to jump above. But let's look at other things here. I mean, RSI is fairly low, so it is still considered to be oversold. And if we look here, we got a pretty strong support level at $4.47. So, great news. Even though we're under the moving averages, you can see the price bouncing off of these support levels, or this current support level at a roughly, again, $4 and just say round number, $4.60. So do I feel the price is going to come below that? I do not. I think we're going to be in pretty good shape to have that bounce and recover and break these 2 moving averages. Because the support level that's been tested, 7 times, is much stronger than a 50 or 200-day moving average, at least in this sense, with the price action being where it should. I mean, the average true range should definitely be higher if you consider and you take away a lot of those strong red candles that occurred on the one-day chart because of all the market news, right? So if you take that out of the equation, the price action should be closer to $10, I guess you could say. So just be mindful of that. All right, so that is the 4-hour chart. We're looking at the 15 next. And what we do first, this is what I do personally. I just remove the moving averages on the chart here because the simple moving averages are a little less effective on a shorter time frame. And the more effective indicators is the volume weighted average price and the EMA line, right? So if we look at the EMA here, that is this red line. That is essentially a momentous indicator in a sense where it's telling us where the price action is, because it see how it keeps bouncing off this and holding underneath and holding below. that shows that the bears are in control, right? That's the price trying to break above. Nope, rejected, rejected, rejected. Anytime you see the price jumping above and below the EMA line on the 15-minute chart, it's usually an indication of the fact that there's consolidation, but in this case, there was obviously a consolidation in a downward fashion. So it's something to be mindful of and be careful with, because the VWAP here, the blue line, is essentially the volume expressed as a price over the last 24 hours. So it takes the 24-hour volume and tells you what the price should be based on that volume. So that being said, the price right now should be $5.14 according to the VWAP. So the price being under, that means that's working as a resistance level. Now the EMA right now is a potential support, so the price bounces off the EMA. It could continue to progress upwards, but we don't truly know just yet. Now I like the fact that the price is above support at $4.60. Okay, so if I were to take entry in this climate right now, I would be very cautious to wait for the price to break above the VWAP line, or for lack of better terms, wait for the VWAP to kind of calm down and come a little further down before considering taking entry. Because even though we're above the support level here and above EMA, we haven't had that true confirmation yet. So if you're going to take entry, just say, for example, again, me personally, I'd wait for the VWAP line to be tested and to break above and to hold for no less than 30 minutes. Okay, that's step number one for me. Step number two, which you could consider doing since we are above support at 460, is to wait for the price to bounce off of this EMA line and to hold above. In other words, as you can see here, the price is up over EMA and is working as a potential support. If the price comes down and bounces off and continues up, and the EMA just say continues this way, which it will likely do, then that would be a good indication of confirmation for a potential entry point. Because again, here's kind of how that works. Let me just see if I can find a good case in point where that happens. I mean, this is kind of a bad example because there's a lot of volatility here in this little situation. But if you can see the price comes up, right, and it comes back down, it doesn't bounce off the EMA, it kind of gets rejected, but it holds above the VWAP. Okay, and then it comes up and it comes down, and you see how it bounces right here. This is what the confirmation I'm referring to. If you can see a bounce like this off the EMA line with the current price action, then that would be a consideration for an entry point. But again, you're kind of working against against the clock, I guess you could say, or whatever term you want to use, because the VWAP line is still working as a resistance. So you want to be careful, right? That's why I wait for both. I prefer to wait to take confirmation above the VWAP and also price bouncing off the EMA and continuing upwards as well. That's just kind of how I do it, right? But I shoot for smaller gains, and I don't try to 10x and 20x every coin that I get into, right? I prefer to get in with smaller entries and to take my positions and to add to my position as I get more confirmation. So for you, if you're not that kind of trader, that's perfectly fine. Feel free to hodl yourself or to get in at what you feel is comfortable. But I can tell you in my experience, waiting for the price to bounce off any type of support and resistance level is a really good indication of the price action and where it's heading. There's no guarantees, but it does increase your odds. And I think you're a much better trader because of it. And so just something to consider. Again, that's kind of how that works. And you could pretty much do the same thing on the 1 minute chart, right? So I know that the lines get a little squiggly here, but if this general concept still applies. Price is under VWAP here. See, it broke above and rejected and came back down. There was no confirmation that the price stayed above. And with the price coming down and holding below the VWAP line, that's working as a resistance level. And of course, the EMA 2 on the 1 minute chart, they pretty much losing EMA and the price is coming back down again. Now just bear in mind the EMA is more sensitive on the 1 minute chart. The smaller time frames, the more essentially it bounces or will react, right? So if you look at this here and you see what's going on, the 1 minute chart is essentially telling us that the price action is more bearish at this point, and it's trending downwards because it rejected off the VWAP line, and it may continue to come back down to test the support level at what, $4.60, 450, 460, right in that range. Okay, so just be mindful, be careful. Of course, now it depends on what kind of trading you're planning to do. If you're going to be like a long-term swing trade, then use the use the 15-minute chart or the 4-hour chart to take entry, because that's more important on understanding big picture. But when you're going to use a 1 minute or 15-minute chart, it's probably more likely going to be a trade that you're going to do in that same day, get in and out the same day, and or just say the 15-minute chart is good for identifying short-term swing trades. Okay? I prefer to hover in between day trading and short-term swing trading, but I do recommend if you're newer to trading, do one or the other. Don't try to do both because there's different mindsets and different things you got to utilize as far as risk tolerances are concerned. So I'll have a training class on these things moving forward, but I can tell you for right now, just try to pick one or the other. Try not to jump between the two, because that's where it can get really risky. I've lost plenty of money in the past, that's why I can say that, and it's not something that I recommend for you at this point. Stick to one craft and get good at it, right? So hopefully you found this to be beneficial, but yes, my projection for RLC is to continue. Let's actually do this here really quick. On the 4-hour chart, I feel like RLC will continue upwards, and I believe this support level will hold at $4.60. Now in the next month, if Bitcoin can stabilize and recover and start coming up back to just say closer to 50,000, then absolutely RLC will come up and test its previous resistance level of maybe not 1650. I think that's a little lofty, but I do feel like it will come up to somewhere in the range of 11 to 12 if we can get Bitcoin just to be able to be a little more consistent in the upward trends, and to stop coming down on us, right? I think we all want that because all of our altcoins are suffering because of this one thing. It's unfortunate, but Bitcoin is Bitcoin. Not much else we can do about it. So if you found benefit from this video, please like and subscribe. Feel free to obviously contact me on Telegram. Feel free to support me on Patreon. And of course, be on the lookout. I'm going to have some live streams coming up soon. I actually got a new microphone recently, so that should work out a lot better. So I'm kind of ironing out those kinks. And I'll also have a Signal group too, so you can stay in the know. And that'll be available through my Patreon account as a premium Patreon membership. Okay, so we'll look at that. Be on the lookout for that later. But for now, thanks again for joining me here. Hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you soon.